Alright, doing a little upgrade project to the 95.50 Ranger. This applies pretty much to any Ranger or Explorer that has the similar style bezel around the radio. So what I'm doing is I'm installing an aftermarket Android navigation system. So here, just got it today. So this is from Amazon. I've done some of these in my other videos, but this will be a little unboxing here. So here's a generic user manual, wiring harnesses, GPS antenna, external microphone, USB connections, etc. This one came with a backup camera, which I will not be using on this vehicle. I've already installed a backup camera, but it's a circular one. It even includes a little hole saw. Alright. Inside of the box, see if we can do this one-handed. Here's the outer trim bezel, which not everyone will need. Just took one side of the styrofoam out. Here is the unit itself. Look at that a little closer here in a second. And some brackets. Shouldn't need those. And then the main wiring harness. It comes with this little ISO DIN connector on it, which I have to cut off to wire it to our harness. Here is the unit itself. This one does not include a CD or DVD player. And let's be honest, that's kind of becoming obsolete anyway. This unit was $219 with free shipping on Amazon. And like I said, it includes Android 7.1 operating system. One thing I've learned with these Android units is never buy one that just has the soft touch buttons. Always make sure it has real buttons and a volume knob. And the reason I say that is because the ones with the soft touch buttons, I've had nothing but bad luck with them not necessarily registering every press, or you're not having a quick way to turn the volume down. But these are all customizable. Excuse the dog there. So I'll show you how we get this hooked up and installed into the Ranger. Alright, so here in the Ranger, I've already removed the dash. I had an aftermarket Pioneer stereo in there already. And it's real simple to remove this bezel, the factory bezel. There's two 7mm bolts that hold this on. Once you get those out, there's just these clips on the back that hold it in place. If you pry it out, the radio will come with it. Disconnect your cigarette lighter. If it's an Explorer, you got a four-wheel drive, or you have a wiper switch. Something else over here. You know, four-wheel drive. You've got your four-wheel drive switch over on this side. Just disconnect everything, and then you're left with this to get the stereo out. If you have a factory stereo, you'll need a set of the radio removal tools. Like I said, in my case, I already had an aftermarket stereo. I had a Pioneer. With Pioneer, to make the mounting kit work, I had to already trim the bottom and the top off of the bezel to get it to fit in there, because the forward opening is more like a 1.5 DIN, not a 2 DIN. The sides I didn't really have to trim. Now, this new stereo is like the European size double DIN, which is actually just a little bit bigger than American, like Kenwood, Pioneer, JVC stereos. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here's the stereo set on top of each other. The old Pioneer on the bottom, the new one on the top. If you look, they're the same depth. The metal part of the radios is the same size. And they're the same size for the most part this way. Where the difference is show you here. So when you turn them up on end like this, it's going to be hard to show here, but the Android radio has a slightly wider and taller bezel on the front where the screen is. And where this causes a problem is your aftermarket mounting kits for these radios that fit around the faceplate. So even where I've already modified the factory unit, I'm going to have to take a little bit more off because this Android radio will not fit through the opening, even with the top and the bottom cut off. Okay, so there's two style of kits that you can buy to fit the Ranger, the F-150, the Explorer, etc. And the first one is the Metra kit. And basically what it does is these pieces of plastic right here mount to the side of the radio, actually like this, as you can see. And they take up the slack, the difference on both sides. And then there's this little tiny trim piece here that gets slid in right here and makes it the difference in the top that you can see. Now, this kit worked really good for this Pioneer. It looked really good because the Pioneer has this large protrusion sticking out of the front from the back here. So when this was on here, as you can see, it looked pretty good. Okay, versus this radio, if you try to use this, number one, it's touching your volume knob, and number two, it sticks out farther than the front of the unit. It looks kind of tacky. It makes the unit look too recessed into the dash. So I don't really care for that. And it probably won't even fit with this one. The other popular style is the American International kit. And this has a little bit more of a traditional piece that goes around, and then the pieces that snap to it that mount to the sides. So once again, on the Pioneer, this piece would go like this, and Pioneer doesn't look great, but it doesn't look too bad. I mean, you can see there's these little gaps at the top and bottom. On a lot of other radios that aren't shaped like this, this would look really good though. But now, as you can see on here, this doesn't fit this radio at all. So, I mean, this is the problem you're going to run into. There's really nothing out there that I've seen video-wise to address this. So, the good news is, this is definitely tall enough. The problem is there still might be this gap on both sides that we need to address with something to make it look right when it's installed in this Ranger dash bezel here. So I'm going to try to figure out the best way to do that and show you guys my way. So what I'm going to do to get a little more room is I'm going to take a Dremel tool and I'm going to cut this up just a little bit across this line here, because this goes at a slight angle down towards the radio, and that should open it up. Same thing on the bottom. I don't want to take off too much, but I'm just going to cut it off and see if that gives me enough room to pry the radio in there. It's going to be a really tight fit. Alright, so I just trimmed it out. So you can see at the top and bottom, I took some off. Just the top and the bottom. I left the sides intact. So I'm going to try to see if this will fit in here now. Alright, well, we're getting somewhere down to here. Obviously that doesn't look good, sticking out like that. So let me take a look at it and see what I can do. Alright, so I don't think I'm going to be able to use this at all for this kit. I mean, there's no way it's going to fit. But I might end up cutting this off and gluing the sides of that in there somehow later just to fill the gaps. But It looks like I'm gonna have to do some pretty serious modifications. You'll, obviously, disclaimer, you'll never be able to go back to a stock radio after this. Just keep that in mind. But this right here is gonna have to be taken out all the way around. So that will effectively completely remove that bottom little bit of shelf there. But in theory, after I do that, the radio will fit inside of this opening. And then I will have to basically use these tabs here on the side to secure the radio in place. So hopefully I can get those lined up with a set of the mounting holes in some way or another. Alright, so here's what the modified piece looks like. You can see we got the sides, took a little off the top, and then the bottom is completely cut off along this line. I'm going to go through here and sand it, try to make it look a little straighter, a little prettier, and we'll blow it off. Alright, I tried doing some stuff with this. Ended up cutting it in half. It doesn't work. But I did use the American International kit. I used the side pieces, and I'm going to mount them to the radio with the DIN screws. And the radio did not come with these screws, actually, but I had some lying around. And as you can see, the mounting kit, it actually snaps in place into the factory Ranger or Explorer panel here. So that is snapped in place on both sides, and it's not going anywhere. And then this is sticking out the front. You can see there's a little bit of a gap over here and a little bit of a gap over here. Now, I thought about using some of those plastic side pieces, possibly just cut this off, kind of maybe, you know, glue that down in there, something like that. We'll see. But the way I have this sticking out, the piece of trim that comes with the radio, which it's funny, there's no way to snap that on there, so I'll have to like glue it or something. But that covers it pretty good. There's just a little bit on both sides, but on the top you can see it sits nice and flush. On the bottom, which you won't even see, it looks good. So I might just go with that and be happy with it. I think it looks pretty good. That'll look pretty good in the truck once it's all installed again. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm trying to trim this out a little bit. This, like I said, this gap here was bugging me. So, you know, even with the bezel on, there's that little bit of a gap in the side. So I'm using a little bit of rubber, like wiring. And see on this side, there's nothing in there. This side, I just force that rubber wiring, like piping, into here. And then when I put this on, it just gives a little bit more of a finished look. So, I mean, it's still not gonna be perfect, but it'll look pretty good. So here's what I'm doing. I'm just forcing it in up at the top, and then I'll press it in and cut it off where it needs to be cut off. Alright, so here it is with the piping, I guess you call it, in the sides. And some of you might be happy with how that looks. And it's not too bad just like that. So I'll make a decision whether I want to put the trim around it later. So next thing, I cut the DIN plug off the back of this, and now I gotta wire this harness to the adapter for the factory wiring. So I'll just disconnect the Pioneer wiring harness, make all these connections. Nothing really, if you've done a car stereo before, you know how to do that. Here's your backup camera input wire and your backup camera input. And there's an illumination wire, which does work. Not only does it turn on the backlighting for the buttons, but it dims the screen. So, come back when I've got all that done. Alright, so here I am in the vehicle. I've got multiple harnesses to connect. The Android radio has a single subwoofer output on it. And I do have a subwoofer that takes a dual, so I have this little RCA splitter that I'll be using. And then I already have an external microphone, so I'm going to try to plug it into this external microphone jack. You could use that, or you could just use the built-in microphone. There's one built onto the front of the unit in the top corner there. So now I've got my harness spliced together here. There's where it plugs into the back of the radio, and there's where it plugs into the Ranger harness. So now I can basically just plug everything in, and we'll see if it works. Alright, now I gotta mount the GPS antenna. I've seen people, I'm sorry it's a little dark in here, but I've seen people put the GPS antenna in all types of crazy places, like up on the dash and up in the roof. That is completely not necessary. Your GPS antenna will work inside of the dash as long as there's no metal in between it and the top. So right in the Ranger and Explorer, there's a little, this is your vents, this plastic lip here. If you stick it, put a little double-sided tape on the back of it, stick it right up in here. And stick it forward just a little bit. There's a little lip in there. You can mount that. And then it will essentially be right under here. This is just plastic, so the signal will go right through there. And then you run the wires down around the side. And we can make our connection at the back of the unit. Okay, the only other thing is there's a USB wire that comes out of the back, so you can plug in a thumb drive or whatever. I'm going to run that to the glove box, and it's just straight through here. And then I'm going to plug everything in, and we're going to try it out. Alright, so I got all the wires connected. Let's put into place here. And we're ready to fire it up. Turn the key. That's a good sign. So I turn the lights on. Let the stereo come on. Alright, put the radio on.
Hard to find the truth in all the lanes are in Houston. You don't have the.
All right, well, that's a good sign. Let's see if the backup camera works. Put it in reverse. There's the backup camera. Very good. Alright. So, I'll probably make another video going through the features of this radio, but this is mainly an installation video. I sure hope it helps with your installation project on your Ranger or Explorer. As you can see, I may not even put that trim around here because I really like how it looks just like this. So we might just leave it like this, but anyway, if you like this video, please subscribe. Leave me a comment below if you have a question or a comment, and I'll do my best to answer it.